and Eastern Kentucky. This is WYMT Mountain News at 5:30.
Good evening, I'm Steve Hensley. Folks throughout the country continue to mourn the death of former President Jimmy Carter. In a statement from the Carter Center yesterday, it says Carter died peacefully at his home in Plains, Georgia at the age of 100. Apart from being the country's 39th president, Carter was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 2002 for his decades of work in advancing international peace, democracy, and human rights. As the elder statesman of the most exclusive club in the world, Carter got to know the presidents who followed him to the White House. CBS's Erica Brown is in Washington with their reaction.
President Biden ordered the flag at the White House and all federal buildings be lowered to half staff in tribute to the 39th president, Jimmy Carter.
Millions of people all around the world, all over the world, feel they lost a friend as well, even though they never met him. And that's because Jimmy Carter lived a life measured not by words, but by his deeds.
Biden's praise of Carter's character was echoed in the statements from the other living presidents. Former President Bill Clinton praised Carter for his tireless work to make the world a better place. Former President George W. Bush said that Carter dignified the office. And former President Barack Obama said Carter promised to always tell the truth. And he did, advocating for the public good, consequences be damned.
Bravery lives in every heart, and someday it'll be summoned. Every time it was summoned, he stepped up. Every time, politically, personally, morally.
President-elect Donald Trump, who'd been a vocal Carter critic, relayed a story to historian Douglas Brinkley about the two meeting in 2016.
Immediately, Carter said to Trump, now I'm trying to save lives around the world, with the guinea worm, and we're doing this at the Carter Center, and I need a substantial gift of money from you.
I love that.
He guilted him, right?
He guilted, and Trump said, that's the first time I ever figured out how he became president.
Sunday, Trump said on social media, while he strongly disagreed with Carter, the late president worked hard to make America a better place. And for that, I give him my highest respect. Carter will lie in state at the U.S. Capitol next week. Erica Brown, CBS News, Washington.
King Charles was among the many world leaders also remembering President Carter. He sent condolences praising Carter's dedication and humility, calling it an inspiration to many.
All right, we do have a wind advisory in effect for portions of the viewing area. Let's go ahead and take a look here at the latest. If you're in Campbell, Claiborne, Lee County in Virginia, or Wise County, wind advisory is in effect beginning at 7 o'clock in the morning and going until 7 o'clock tomorrow night, as some places could see winds between 15 to 30 miles per hour with gusts as high as 45 miles per hour. Now, temperatures across the area, not too shabby. 45 is where we should be for this time of year. We're in the upper 40s and low 50s, even mid 50s from Harlan over towards Monticello. 54 is the current temperature in London. 50 is the temperature in Pikeville. Grundy, one of the cool spots, at 46 degrees. All is quiet on live pinpoint Doppler radar. That will change as we go throughout the day on Tuesday, especially in the early morning hours. They'll really ramp up, though, as we go throughout the mid to late morning hours. So tonight we'll see temperatures in the mid 40s for the overnight low. We'll see temperatures staying in the low 50s by 7 o'clock, upper 40s by the 10 to 2 o'clock time frame. Then as we go into the 7 o'clock hour, we'll see temperatures in the low 50s. Now, enjoy tomorrow in terms of temperature, because tomorrow's the last day of above normal temperatures. Then there's a big change coming. And we'll talk about that big change in the first alert forecast in a few minutes. Steve.
And I have a feeling I'm not going to like it. Eric, thank you very much. Argentinian prosecutors have charged 5 people in connection with Liam Payne's death. Payne fell from the balcony of a hotel room in Buenos Aires in October. Prosecutors have said the One Direction member had alcohol, cocaine, and a prescription antidepressant in his system. A hotel employee and a bartender have been charged with supplying Payne with the drugs. If convicted, they face up to 15 years in prison. A federal appeals court has upheld the civil case verdict that found Donald Trump guilty of sexually abusing writer E. Jean Carroll. The court also denied Trump's request for a new trial. Trump had challenged the $5 million verdict, saying the trial judge had erred in allowing testimony from two other women who also accused Trump of sexual assault. The appeals court disagreed, saying they were not persuaded a new trial was warranted. President-elect Trump wants to keep Representative Mike Johnson as House Speaker. He endorsed the congressman from Louisiana just days before the House votes. Trump wrote that Johnson is a, quote, good, hardworking, religious man who will do the right thing and continue to win. On Friday, the new Congress is set to convene to elect a speaker. President Joe Biden's time in the White House is coming to an end. The president is finishing his one term and leaving the political arena after nearly 50 years. WYMT Washington correspondent Josh Roltenberg spoke with a historian about Biden's legacy.
On January 20th, President Joe Biden will exit the world stage after serving for nearly 5 decades as a U.S. Senator, the Vice President, and Commander-in-Chief. Joe Biden's presidential legacy began in the middle of a global pandemic and his administration's work to provide immediate relief for Americans.
What he accomplished was absolutely extraordinary. Now, some people would argue that the inflation was due to his policies because of the money that was poured into the economy during and after COVID. But that money was essential.
James Grossman at the American Historical Association says the president's legislative achievements, from infrastructure, gun reform, computer chip manufacturing, climate change, and health care, helped rebuild the economy and their full effects to be realized in the years ahead.
In ensuing decades, people are going to look around this country and see what was built. They're going to see what factories were created. They're going to see the rebuilding of our infrastructure. It'll be tangible representations of what he accomplished.
But Grossman says Biden's foreign policy legacy is a mixed bag. Grossman says while the president rebuilt relationships with our allies, his leadership in conflicts overseas have had their flaws.
The departure from Afghanistan did not go well. There's no question about that. But I think he shares responsibility with that with his predecessor, who did plan the timeline. He did not successfully solve any problems in the Middle East. There's no doubt about that. I'm not sure what more he could have done in Ukraine. Maybe he could have given them the stronger weapons earlier. That's hard to say because there was a balancing act with a crazy man.
And then there's the questions about Biden's age and the circumstances surrounding his withdrawal from the 2024 presidential race. Grossman says that is the president's main failure.
When he decided to run 4 years ago, he pretty much implied that he was going to be a 4-year president, a one-term president. He was the bridge to the future. He was running to make sure Trump wouldn't win. The issue is why he didn't stick to that. Had he done that, I think that we would be looking very differently at his legacy, which is quite substantial in terms of concrete accomplishments.
Grossman says Biden contributing to Donald Trump returning to the White House and the pardoning of his son Hunter will hurt his legacy. But he also says a lot of the president's legacy will depend on what remains after Trump takes office. At the White House, I'm Josh Roltenberg.
Well, President Biden has announced $2.5 billion in additional security assistance for Ukraine today. It comes as the White House is pushing to get as much aid to the Ukrainians as possible before the president leaves office in January. The U.S. has provided more than $60 billion in aid to Ukraine since Russia invaded the country nearly 3 years ago. In South Korea, 179 people are dead following a plane crash. The plane belly landed and skidded off the end of the runway at Muon International Airport, erupting as a fireball as it slammed into a wall. Questions remain about what caused the plane to crash and why the death toll was so high. In addition to the 175 passengers, 4 of the 6 crew members were also killed in the crash. Coming up on Mountain News at 5:30.